uh, preview presentation. And I should mention at first, we've got FAFSA Step-by-Step partners tonight in taking part within this, or being a part of trying to raise the FAFSA rate here in the state of Iowa this year. The Iowa Department of Education, Bureau of Iowa College Aid, IASFA, the Iowa Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. We've actually have three members of IASFA that work in financial aid offices here in the state of Iowa that will be monitoring the chat to answer your questions tonight. And then where I work at, the Iowa College Access Network, we're a nonprofit organization that helps students and families through the career college planning and financial aid process that we'll be talking about tonight. Now, the way that, again, we want you to get your questions answered, if you're watching this live here on Wednesday, February 26th, we've got FAFSA Step-by-Step volunteers in the chat. Jordan from the University of Iowa, Melissa from DMAC, and Mary from Grinnell. And they've helped many times this year and in previous years. So really appreciate them being on the chat box for you to answer any questions as I go along with you through the form and to kind of show you what it looks like and what to expect, and point out a few problem areas that arise as well. Just to get a little practice, for those that are watching this live in the chat box, if you wouldn't mind putting just give us a practice, what city or high school that you're from, whether you're a student or a parent, wherever you're as a student or a parent of a student, whatever city or high school that you're from. We're just curious about that right now. Davenport North, Harlan, Des Moines, Dowling Catholic. I'm actually going to present there, Dowling, from Urbandale. We've got a FAFSA event at Urbandale tomorrow night I'm going to be attending. Benton Community School. Okay, Storm Lake. We've really got we've got pretty good part of the state all over. Harlan as well. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that. And again, just wanted to see where everybody was from. It's good to know we've got people throughout the state that is on tonight. We're expecting a few more that had signed up for it. We'll see if they jump on board later or not. But again, if you have questions as we're going along, this is what to utilize. The chat box on here, ask the question, and one of our experts here will answer the questions as we go along through the program. This is our number at ICAN, our website, and then phone number as well. Later on, if you would need help with someone from ICAN at no cost, we can help you either by Zoom or in-person appointments at one of our locations throughout the state. Some of you would be closer than others where I see that you're from, but we're more than happy to help you out. You can just go onto our website or give us a call to set up an appointment to do that. All right. Again, any questions, please ask. But what we're going to do now, and I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as possible, but just showing you and pointing out some problem areas that arise and screenshots of what it would actually look like to fill out the form. So ask those questions to our experts as we go along. But the first thing I do want to talk about in getting started with the FAFSA form is that you are going to need to have a studentaid.gov account. And when I say you're going to need one, I really mean that everyone's going to need an account to access the form. More than likely, who I'm talking to tonight, you are either parents or dependent students that are going to need to have parent information on the form as well. And each of you, each what we call contributor, needs to have a studentaid.gov account to be able to fill out the FAFSA form. Going to studentaid.gov is where you would set that up if you haven't already done that. And it takes 1 or 3 days for the studentaid.gov account to be verified through the Social Security Administration. So kind of what I would say would be the ultimate way in filling out the form would be you would need the studentaid.gov account ahead of time, 1 or 3 days at least before you do it, so your account gets verified, and then you're able to go into the form and fill out the FAFSA the best way possible, where it will actually more than likely for you bring in your tax information directly from the IRS. So again, if any student or parent, if you have not done that, this would be your first step. Studentaid.gov is also where we go to fill out the FAFSA form. But if you have not created an account yet, please do that at studentaid.gov. And if you have any questions on that, also please ask our experts in the chat box. But what tonight I'm going to go through with you is the scenario of a dependent student inviting in a parent to complete the form. So I'm going to show that dependent student part and complete their section, as well as then once the parent is invited and you log in and complete their part later on as well. There is a way of doing the parent information first and kind of inviting the student in and them to do their part. But our example tonight is going to be with the dependent student inviting the parent. Where you would go again to complete this is studentaid.gov. And once you have logged in with your account, that'll be the first thing that you do after you've created it. Once you've logged in with your account, you should come to a page like this. And what we're going to start is a 2526 FAFSA form and click on that button right there. The 2425 FAFSA is still available, but that was for the fall of 24 and spring and summer of 25. If you're needing to fill it out for the fall of 25 and spring and summer of 26, it's the 2526 FAFSA form that you need to click on. And again, what we're going to be talking about tonight. This does kind of show a login here if you haven't already putting in the login. But a lot of times actually now you'll log in at first and then click on as far as starting the new FAFSA form. When you get it, after you click on the 2526 starting the form, it's going to ask you how you're starting the form as. Again, either one of you could start the form, either the student or a parent. But tonight we're going to use the example clicking on and starting the student and then hit continue. There are 4 videos that you can watch if you want to, but I'm going to be talking about a lot of the information that these videos would be going over in this section. The first video is about what the FAFSA form is. The second part about talking about who contributors are going to be on the FAFSA form. And that's actually something that I wanted to stop a second and mention right now. For dependent students in filling out the FAFSA form, and basically we'll get into that on majority of high school seniors, especially going to college right away, are going to be dependent students. We'll talk about that a little bit more once we dive into the form. But if you're dependent, you're going to need parent information on the form. If both legal parents are married, then you're going to answer questions about the both parents. Now, if those parents filed joint taxes in 2023, only one parent is going to need to get a studentaid.gov account. I do want to make that point. If they filed joint taxes, then only one of them would. If those legal parents that are married filed married filing separately taxes in 2023, each parent then would need to do or to get a studentaid.gov account to be able to complete their section of the FAFSA for the student. Now, if legal parents are unmarried but living together, we're going to answer questions about both parents, but this would be one example. If they're unmarried, they wouldn't have filed joint taxes in 2023. So each of those parents would also need to get a studentaid.gov account along with the student there. If a widowed parent or single, if a parent is widowed or single, we're only going to answer questions about that parent. So only that parent would need the studentaid.gov account, and only their information would be included on the form. Unless the widowed parent would be remarried as of the day we're filling out the form, then we're going to answer questions about both that parent and step parent too. Even if they weren't remarried during the tax year that's being asked about, if they got remarried, if that widowed parent got remarried yesterday and you're filling out the FAFSA form today, we would need both the parent and step parent information from 2023. That would be another example to where, since they weren't married in 2023, since they just got married yesterday, they wouldn't have filed joint taxes in 2023. So each of those parents would need to get a studentaid.gov account to be able to complete their part. The big one is that we always like to address if parents are divorced or separated. If parents are divorced or separated, we answer questions about the parent that has provided the most financial support in the last 12 months whenever you're filling out the form. So if you're filling it out tonight, look at the last 12 months. If mom provided the most financial support and is not remarried, then only mom's information is going to go on the FAFSA form. If mom would be remarried as of today, then we would need mom and step parent information as well on the form. And if they did not file joint taxes in 2023, both mom and step parent each would need to get studentaid.gov accounts as well. So again, if you have questions on this, please ask our experts in the chat box. But this is who we determine what parent information needs to go on the FAFSA form. Now the next video is what to expect, kind of going through it and just letting you know kind of what to expect, which I'm taking you through that journey tonight with this webinar. And then after submitting the form and kind of what to expect, and I'll also briefly touch on that towards the very end as well. With this last one, it says start the FAFSA form, so that's what we're going to end up doing. And with the very first page, what it's going to show is the general student information that's really in their FSAID account: name, date of birth, social security number, email address, mobile phone number, as well as permanent address. If for some reason any of this needs to be changed, then the student's going to have to go back to the dashboard of their FSAID account in the top right-hand corner, their account settings. And then in the account settings, so go back to the dashboard, then there will be account settings, and they'll be able to change that personal information and then jump back into the actual FAFSA form. So it can't be changed here. They would have to go back into the account settings at studentaid.gov first to change anything. If you just created them, I doubt that they're going to need any changes. So if it looks good, and that's what we're going to say with our example here, we're going to hit continue. Next, it's going to ask about the student's state of legal residence and the date they became a legal resident. Now, usually it's going to automatically, going off the address, put in the state that you're in there. So it's going to show Iowa. And then the date the student became a legal resident. If you were born here in Iowa, put the month and year of birth. If it was at another time, try to come as close as possible as you can to that month and year that you came to Iowa. I got to say that this doesn't have to be as an exact date as a date of birth does when listing on the form, but we just wanted to have you try to come as close as possible to when that was. Once that's been answered and we hit continue, next comes up consent and approval. This page just lets the student know, and a lot of wording here, that they're going to need to provide consent and approval to have their federal taxes transferred over directly from the IRS into the FAFSA form. Now, even if a student didn't file in 2023, this is something that needs to be done. And later on, when we get to the parent information, you're going to have to hit that approval too. For a student to be eligible for federal and state of Iowa aid, see what they can get, each contributor on the FAFSA, the student and each parent, are going to need to give approval to have their taxes brought over this way. And again, you would hit approval whether or not you filed taxes in 2023. Once we hit that approval button, then at the very end, what it's going to show then, if it's going to be directly transferred in or not, and give you an idea of that. For our purposes tonight, it's going to say data not received or not successful, so that we can show you if you would have to manually put in the tax information. But the majority of you, this is going to work for and be able to, and this is actually going to say on this page successful, and it will work. One thing I will mention though, if you just create an FSAID and it's not been verified yet, the studentaid.gov account, and it hasn't been verified yet, and you try to go in and do the FAFSA form, you're going to get results like this and have to manually put tax information in. So that's why we would like to have you wait until it is verified within the 1 to 3 days, then go in and do the FAFSA form, because for the majority of you, that's going to mean the taxes are going to be brought over electronically and just make the FAFSA easier for you to be able to fill out. Once we hit continue on here, next comes personal circumstance questions to the student. The student's marital status, probably single and never married is what most of you are going to put down. We click on that and hit continue. Then what their college or career plans are going to be. Even if they've got college credit ahead of time, if they're a high school senior, we're going to put first year freshman down on what their grade level will be next year in college. The question down below asks when they begin the 25-26 school year, will already have their first bachelor's degree. And I think for the majority of you that are probably watching this, that is going to be no as well. Once those two questions are answered, then we hit continue. And then it gets into personal circumstance questions. These are the questions that are going to determine whether a student is dependent or independent from the family. Now, as you can see here, for our example, this is going to be a dependent student, so none of these are going to apply. But what they are asking for is if the student's currently serving on active duty in the armed forces for purpose of training or a veteran, If the student has any children that will receive more than half their support from the student in the between July 1 of 2025 and June 30th of 2026. At any time since the student turned 13, were they an orphan, no living or biological or adoptive parent? At any time since they turned 13, were they a ward of the court? At any time since they turned 13, were they in foster care? Is the student or was an emancipated minor or an illegal in the state of residence or an illegal guardianship with someone other than a parent or step parent? If a student would be able to click on one of these boxes, and it wouldn't be none of these apply, but click on one of these boxes, the ward of the court, the foster care, legal guardianship, those are three of the big ones that we usually see if any student as a high school senior is able to answer yes to, it would be one of those three. If they can, they would be independent and not need parent information on the form. So whether anyone watching this is in that situation, you might know of someone. So I definitely wanted to mention it during this program. If you click on one of these boxes, you would be an independent. That's not none of these apply. Then student would be independent and not need parent information on the form. And that could open up the opportunity for them to see quite a bit of financial aid. And we want to encourage any students that might be in that situation to fill out the FAFSA form, see what you can qualify for. Chances are the colleges later that you list on the form will ask for documentation later. So we encourage the students and those that are helping them to get that documentation ready. But the student would be independent if they can click on any of these. Again, though, for our example, we're going to say none that apply and hit continue. One other personal circumstance question that could make them independent is if the student was an unaccompanied youth after July 1 of 2024 and either homeless or at risk of being homeless, as again, unaccompanied. Now, if that is yes, then it's going to ask who designated them, like a school liaison or emergency shelter, somebody whoever designated them to that, but they would be independent if they answered yes to this question. For our example tonight, though, this student's answering no to this question as well, and it will hit continue. Next is a question about student unusual circumstances. Basically, if any unusual circumstance prevents a student from contacting their parents or would contacting pose a risk to the student, and it gives some extreme examples. Most I know that answer is going to be no. We're going to hit continue, and the student's going to be a dependent student. But if any student is in this situation, it is the colleges that are empowered to make any professional judgments on unusual circumstances. So we would encourage any student that is in any of these situations where they cannot contact parents, it would pose a risk. Contact the student financial aid offices directly of the schools you're looking at. They can guide you on the next steps from there. We're answering no and then hitting continue from here. And the student, it says you are a dependent student. And then a question asks, are the student's parents refusing to provide info on the form? And you want a direct unsubsidized loan only. Click no on that. And as parents, do not, we want to encourage you, make sure you're including your information on the form if the student is dependent. Your information will be taken into account. It's technically not going to hold you to have to provide anything on the form, but your information will be taken into account. But it only hurts the student when a parent does not provide the information on there. So we want the student to answer no on this question and hit continue and be able to move on with later on having parent information be able to be included as well so that you can apply for as much aid as possible by filling this form out. Next, we're going to get into about telling us your parents. This is where you're going to invite the parents into the form. So for our example tonight, are the parents married to each other? That is yes. If it was no, then there would be a few other questions that would go down. Do they live together? Does one provide more financial support? To try to figure out which parent that you would utilize. For our example here today, though, we're going to say the parents are married and click continue. And then there is an invite that is going to be done where this is quite honestly where the parents are going to need to be there to be able to provide this information so that they receive the invite. Because what it's included is the parents' first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number, as well as an email address on there to get the invite. Now, if the parents are married and filed a joint taxes, then only one of you may have done and got the FSA ID, and only one of you would need to get the FSA ID. So really, it does look a little different than this now. You're going to invite the one parent, and I wouldn't worry about inviting the parent, spouse, or partner. That can be done later, or their information put in later when you do the parent section. So I would just include the parent on here that has the federal student aid ID. Make sure all that information is correct, because if you put down a wrong first name or last name, compared to what is tied to the studentaid.gov account that the parent did, or date of birth or social security number, there will be an error message, a red error message at the top saying, this person it looks like has an FSA ID, and you've got something in there not correct. Something is not matching up. What we're hoping though is you put in all the correct information on there, hit the send invite, and then that goes through an email to the parent uh, for being able to provide their information. We'll get into that a little bit later once we get into the parent part, because after the parent invite is sent, now we go back to answering questions about the student, getting into their demographics. With their demographics, it's going to ask about a student's gender. Actually, the question has just been changed. It says, what is the student's sex? And it gives male and female. And then you answer and move on. Click continue from there. It will ask about if the student's Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin on here. Answering that, or there is a prefer not to answer with this question too. And then students' race. A lot of times we haven't used subcategories. They do have that within there. We usually just click on the box and helping them out. There's also a prefer not to answer. This isn't anything that's actually going to the colleges. It's more of, I think, used for studying and knowing some research numbers, but it isn't anything that actually the colleges that you have this information sent to will receive. Once we've answered these questions and click continue, it'll ask about the student's citizenship. If they're a U.S. citizen, we're utilizing that. If a student is not a citizen, but they're an eligible non-citizen, what we mean by that is a permanent resident or has a green card, permanent resident, U.S. permanent resident card. They're going to have a UCSIS number that you would include when you click on this box, and would include as well. Just having a visa doesn't make a student an eligible non-citizen. Students are here on a visitor visa, any type of a visa. Students that are under the DACA program are actually not considered eligible non-citizens either. If you have any questions about citizenship, please ask our experts in the chat box. For our example tonight, though, we're going to say this student is a U.S. citizen, and then click continue. Next, it's going to ask about parents' educational status, whether neither parent attended, one or both attended but didn't complete, or one or both parents completed college. You can put don't know on there, but whatever that answer is, once you click on and answer that, then we click continue. There'll be a question about parent killed in the line of duty, whether they were killed serving on active duty in the armed forces, on or after events of 9/11, or performing official duties as a public safety officer. For our purposes here, it is no, but that is a question on there. Once you've answered that, then we click continue, and it's going to ask about the student's high school completion status. There might be some students that are homeschooled where you click on that. I know especially some adult students we've helped out that've gotten GEDs, but if you have completed with a high school diploma, when you click on that and hit continue, it's going to have you do a search for that high school and go through the search process. Once you find it and click on that box and then click continue, then it's going to give you one more time to confirm that high school. If that is correct, then we're going to hit continue there. And now we're going to get into the student's financials. Again, we're going to show an example on here with the financials as if the data retrieval didn't work. So it's going to ask if the student filed taxes in 23 or not, and we're going to answer yes to this and say the student did. For most students, if they did file, their tax information will probably be brought over electronically and you won't have to go through this. Now, if a student did not file taxes in 2023, when you get that, you will get this question if they didn't file, and when you click on no and hit continue, it'll go right to their asset questions from there. For our purposes, though, just to see what kind of information may have to be put in manually or what is brought over electronically, we're going to put yes on this and hit continue. And then it gets into the student's 23 tax return info, their filing status, what money they earned from working, tax exempt interest, untaxed portions of IRA distributions. Those are questions that if it's brought in electronically, it's already going to be filled in and you'll never see them. If you have to manually put it in, then you're gonna see it right here, and for the student, a lot of times, even for the parents, when we get to your part and show you the same thing, some of these are gonna be all zeros, and if you don't have anything on it when it's transferred over, it'll transfer over, the zeros for you. Untaxed portion of pension, adjusted gross income, income tax paid, IRA deductions, education credits. Now, 2 questions that you will see, even if your taxes are brought over electronically, are these bottom 2 right here. The amount of college grants, scholarships, or AmeriCorps benefits reported as income to the IRS. This is very rare. Most students and parents are not gonna have this, and that's gonna be a 0, as well as the foreign earned income exclusion, too. If for some reason any student would have any eventually, high school seniors aren't gonna have any yet, of this, but, if they ever do in any given year that you fill out the form, you'd put the amount down, but most times those are gonna be zeros, but again, will be questions asked even if your taxes are brought over electronically. That then once we get by the financials there, we get into the asset part. And all of these are as of today, what do the student have in total balance of cash savings and checking, the net worth of their investments, and then business and investment farm value. So you would list anything down there. When we get to the parent part, I'm going to talk just a little bit more about investments or business and farm value because it usually applies more to them. Once we've answered the questions though for the student here on this one and hit continue, now we're going to list down the college or colleges that they want the results sent to. Up to 20 colleges can be listed on here. If you've already got the federal school code, you could search by that to find them. If you don't, then you can search by the school name, the state, city, and school name on there to click a search. And when you find the ones that pop up for you to select as you're going through that search, you just clicked on those. And again, up to 20 is what can be listed. If you only have one, again, you can just list one down, but up to 20 schools is the max that you can list. Once you've got all of them selected, it'll show one more time on there, the ones that you have selected. And if all of them are done, hit continue. If not, you can search and select more schools. But if you've got them done, you click continue. And now we're at the end for the student part. You can look into each different section if you want to double check the info, the personal identifiers, personal circumstances, demographics, financial, and colleges again. And if you need to jump back into to make any changes, you certainly can. But if and then it's also going to share like the contributor, the parent that you are shared with, and the invite that has been sent. It will show other things like the parent section. Right now, these are all gray. Nothing is in there because the parent hasn't done their part as of yet. If everything looks good and we hit continue, then we come to the sign and complete section. Basically, the student is signing stating that you're only going to use the federal aid to pay for the cost attending the higher ed education institution you're going to. You're not in default on any loans, don't owe any money back on federal grants. You'll notify the school if you are in default of a federal loan and will not receive Pell Grant for more than one school at a period of time. Everything is just basically verifying it's complete and accurate information too. When that's the case, we're going to click on this box. It's going to state the student's name, agree to the terms outlined above, click on sign, and you're going to get this confirmation that you're almost there since we haven't done the parent part yet, but it does say that the student section is complete and again shows the parent contributor on here. So we've got the student part done then in this way. Now what we want to do is log out of the student's account and we're going to jump into the parent part of the form, log in with their account. Now, as a parent, that parent invite, you're going to get an email that looks very similar to this. And basically what this email is going to be saying is that your student identified you as a parent. And now to get started, click on here, and it's going to take you to the studenta.gov account. So I know when we're helping families in our offices, we just log out of the student's account, and then we go back in, go into studenta.gov again, and log in with the parent information then on the form. or excuse me, with their account, I should say, logging in with the parent. And what you should have at the very really, it might look a little bit different on here at first. It might just say an activity. You have one activity on your dashboard. Once you click on that activity, you'll see an invitation just like this from the student. And what you're going to do when you see that invitation from the student, click on the accept invitation, and you agree you're going to share that information when this message pops up. Yep, hit continue. And now we're going to go into your part of the form as the parent. It's going to show you all the videos again if you want to re-see them again. I'm just going to click by them real quick here. But it's going to go through and look very similar to what we had just did for the student for the parent part as well. You're going to look over your identifying information to make sure that all looks correct, including the address too. And the first thing they're going to ask you is for your consent right away to have the taxes brought over. Same thing that we did for the student, now for the parent as well. We click on that and hit approve, and data not received. Most of you, it's going to say successful again, as long as you use your FSA ID once it's been verified. But if it says this, data not received, then we're going to need to manually put in the information, and that's kind of what we're going to show you again, just like what we had seen with the student. But majority of you, your information is going to be brought over. It's been working great this year. Next, we get into the parent demographic part. Parents' marital status on here. Parents, now, the parent state of legal residence. What we would put here would be the parent whose FSA ID or studentaid.gov account we are signed in for. If you haven't noticed, and maybe I didn't say, FSA ID for federal student aid ID or studentaid.gov account, I'm really using that synonymous, the same. It means the same thing. At one time, we had heard they were going to the term studentaid.gov account. Now I think we're still seeing FSA ID being talked about. So you might hear either term, but here we are using or putting down the state of legal residence and the date that that parent became the state of legal residence for the one that we are signed in with on the account here. And if I remember right, that is, I believe the parent was Mark that they had sent it on. So putting that state of legal residence in, hitting continue. Now we're getting into the parent's financial information. It's going to ask if they've received any of these federal benefits in 23 or 24, and earned income credit, which is on line 27 of your federal taxes, federal housing assistance, free or reduced price lunch from school, Medicaid, SNAP, food stamps, TAMP, WIC. If none of these apply, you would click on that. But if you do click on any of these, if a parent or anyone in their family had received any of these benefits in 23 or 24, it's really a simplified needs test. And later on, your assets questions won't be asked about. For our example here, we're going to put none that apply. But if any of you have received any of those benefits, then later on, your assets won't be taken into account. And even though we had answered asset questions for the student because we began with them, their assets wouldn't be looked at in the calculation either to determine what they feel as a family you could contribute if any family member received any of these benefits. After we continue here, it will ask if your taxes aren't brought over electronically, if or will you file the 23 taxes. So we're going to answer yes here. And then it asks if you filed a joint tax return with your current spouse. Now, if your taxes were brought over electronically, you won't see this top question, but you will see this bottom one. It'll ask, and if you file joint taxes, then only, again, as we mentioned, one parent needs to file or get a studentaid.gov account, and this will be the last section that you'll need to complete. If you did not file taxes on here jointly, then that's when, again, that other spouse will also need an FSA ID, and they will need to complete their part just like this. So really, in other words, there'll be a third section to complete for that student's total FAFSA to be done if the two parent contributors did not file joint taxes in 2023. For our example, though, here, we are saying that they did file jointly, and we hit continue. Then it asks about family size. And actually, the question, if your taxes are brought over electronically, the question won't just come right to family size at first. It'll actually say, is your family size different than the number of individuals you claimed on your income taxes? If that is no, if it's not different, the number of exemptions you claimed is the same as family size, then you're not actually gonna see this family size question. It'll just your family size will be what the exemptions are. If your taxes, though, from 2023 are not the same, they are different, than what you had filed for exemptions, then this question will pop up to you. If your taxes aren't brought over, just like this example, then it happens automatically. So we have a family size here of 4. The parent, the parent, spouse, and student will already be counted, but it'll ask for any other children or dependents who lived with the parents and received more than half their support from them in July of 2025 and June 30th of 26. Once this question has been answered one way or the other, then you will be asked about the number in college in a family, excluding parents. Our example is going to be 1, but if any of you have more than one student going to be attending college next year, that could be 2, 3, and each of them are going to need to fill in their own FAFSA form. Unfortunately, I've got to tell you that there's no longer a break for families that have more than one student in college when they determine what you can contribute as a family, but the question is still asked here on the FAFSA form. And then your 23 taxes for the parents, if it's not brought over. Just like what we talked about with the student, the same thing that is showing up on here as well. A few other questions that really could be asked to the student too. I don't know if I'd hit on them as hard, like if you filed a certain schedule, net loss from a business. And then these bottom 2 questions are ones that's always asked again, as I mentioned before, even if the taxes were brought over. So you would need to fill it in, and we've always told families if we ever help them in an office or a FAFSA event, make sure to bring the copy of the taxes just in case if we need to look at it. Sometimes it doesn't happen a lot anymore, but sometimes it doesn't work, and now we have to manually put in your information, and if that's the case, we can certainly do that. But for the majority of you, you're not gonna see all these questions because your taxes are gonna be brought in electronically. Now, the asset questions. One question before the assets on the parent part will be annual child support received. They want to know if you received any child support as a family for the last complete calendar year. So, for those of you filling this out right now, the last complete calendar year would be 2024. You would put that down for any child support received for all children. If you did not receive any in 2024, then you would just put 0 down for that question. And then it's the asset questions directed to the parents. The total amount of cash savings and checking, the investments, and the business and farm value. Now here, I wanted to mention it real quickly what they mean by it. Cash savings and checking, that's easy, but what about, first of all, the business and farm question? If any of you have a small business or farm, there are no longer any exemptions to that. So what they would be looking for the net worth of it is value minus debt for any businesses or farms on that question here, and they're looking at land, building, machineries, equipment, inventory, all of that, subtracting any debt that might be with that land, building, machinery, equipment that you have as well. So if for example, if you have a small business that, based on all of this, is worth $100,000, but you still owe 80,000 on those assets, then 20,000 is what you'd list. If it's worth 100,000 and you still owe 100,000 or more, 0 is what you would list then as the net worth. For investments, what is included is not the home that you live in, but any other real estate like rental properties or second homes, for example, net worth value minus debt. Do not include business or farm when we talk about real estate. That's its own separate question. But any other real estate, trust funds, even if a student or if a parent, if you have it, because again, all of these questions are asked both to the student and parent. But even if you can't touch a trust fund until later, that would be an investment that you would need to list down. CDs, UGMA and UPMA accounts, stocks, bonds, 529 plans. I wanted to specifically mention those. 529 plans, the way that they are set up is if you're a parent saving for your son or daughter, you're the account owner and they're the beneficiary. The side that we would count their 529 plan on would be the parent side as the account owner side, so the parent side. And you only list now as a parent the 529 plan for the student you're filling the FAFSA form out for. You used to have to put down any 529 plan where you were the account owner, but right now it is only the student that you're filling the form out for on there. Something else I did want to bring up with 529 plans. if a grandparent or an aunt or uncle is saving a 529 plan for a student. The grandparent or aunt or uncle is the account owner, and there's nowhere here on the FAFSA form where we have to count grandparents or aunt or uncle's assets. So those 529 plans would not be counted as an asset here anywhere on the FAFSA form. Any questions about business, farm, or investments, please ask our financial aid professionals in the chat box here. Investments not to include, though, the home that you live in, as well as any retirement accounts. You do not include that, or life insurance values is another. So for many Iowa families, these are the 2-3 big ones that they have, and you do not have to count those as assets. In fact, there's no place now anywhere where any retirement money is looked at on the FAFSA form. Once we've put in the parent asset information, then we're going to pop in the parent spouse or partner information. Maybe the one that doesn't have the FSA ID, or just the second parent from the first one on here. Now, if they did not file joint taxes in 2023, this is where we would put that other parent, spouse, or partner information, and they would get an invite to complete their section. But for our example here, we did say that they filed joint taxes, so they're just putting down their general information on here. This other spouse will get an email, but there's nothing that they're going to have to do since it's joint taxes. Everything that is needed is already really been done in this case. So just double check and make sure all that information is correct. But when we put in the other parent, spouse, or partner's information here on the form and hit continue, we're almost done now with the FAFSA. You can look over the identifiers, the demographics, the financials one more time, just to double check if everything looks good. Now that parent is going to, just like we did with the student, sign, but since they're the last contributor on the form, since the student already did their part, and there's no other contributor that needs to complete a section now, it's not just going to say sign only. Now it's going to say sign and submit. They click on that and hit sign and submit, and you're going to get a confirmation screenshot here that says the FAFSA, congratulations, FAFSA is complete, and actually lists the student's name. The student is going to be the one to get an email with this confirmation page to them. The parent actually won't. You'll see this, but the student is going to get a confirmation page sent to the email that they have registered with their studentaid.gov account. It's really just a copy of the confirmation page saying that it's been submitted, nothing that you have to do actually with that form on there. Once this is completed and done, within a week or two, the colleges are going to get the results. If they need anything else from you as a family, they will let you know. More and more people are not needing to do what we call verification and providing extra information, but it is always possible. So if there is anything extra that the college needs, please get that into them right away. But eventually colleges will start sending out financial aid offers. There are some schools right now, some of the private schools here in the state of Iowa, that have already begun sending out financial aid offers. And I think within the next month here, coming up at different parts in March, the Regent universities here in Iowa are going to begin sending them to students. And community college, it's typically at the end of March, beginning of April. Some of those will begin starting to send out. The financial aid offers are a list of anything that a student qualifies for, the school letting you know any federal, state, college aid itself that is available and that you can receive. If you ever need any help in deciphering what those financial aid offers mean, you can certainly check with the colleges where you got them from, or at ICAN, we do sit down with families and kind of go through with them and what exactly means for bottom line cost as well. So that is taking you through a journey on filling out the FAFSA form. I want to put out, for those watching live here on Wednesday, February 26th, want to put out a last call for any questions that you might have. Please do that on there. I've seen that there have been some questions been going through, which is great. Please put out a last call here before we end. While we're waiting to see if there's any other questions out there, I do want to thank you, our FAFSA Step-by-Step partners here with the Bureau of Iowa College Aid, IASFA, and at ICAN again. Remember, if you um, have any at all questions, please let us know, and we'll certainly be more than happy to try to help you out with completing this form. Want to thank Mary and Jordan and Melissa as well for joining tonight and being a part of this program and answering your questions on the chat. And just one more time, putting out a call for any questions that anyone might have. Any questions at all? All right. I am not seeing any, so I am going to go ahead and sign us off with the webinar now. Oh, okay. I think there was another one. One question on here, but yes, parents need to create an account as well. That is, I seen that on the chat, and I'll just answer that right now. Yes, parents are also going to need to for dependent students. And if there are two parent contributors on the form, if you filed joint taxes in 2023, then only one of you would need to create the FSA ID. But if there are two parent contributors and you filed taxes separately in 2023, each parent then would need to create their own account on there. But at least for a dependent student, at least one of you are going to need to do that, as well as the student creating their account too. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you for all that attending. If you have any more questions after tonight, there's our website and phone number at ICAN. Please feel free to contact us as well. Mary, Jordan, and Melissa, again, thank you so much for being a part of this program tonight. Good luck with everyone in filling it out, and don't hesitate to contact us later if you have questions or need help in filling it out. We'd be more than happy to do that by Zoom or an in-person appointment with you. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.